top stories on the morning brief. And we'll begin with some interesting sides in the political party of the PDP. It was a reunion of sorts from late last night up until early this morning as the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and the Minister of the FCT, Mr. Nyesom Wike, together attended the PDP National Caucus meeting in the nation's capital, Abuja. And of course, this is coming ahead of the party's National Executive Committee meeting today. But this is the first time the former Rivers State Governor will be attending a meeting of the PDP since the presidential election last night. Mr. Wike has been at loggerheads with PDP leadership and did not support the party's choice of Atiku Abubakar as presidential candidate of the party. But this caucus meeting is one of the series of meetings by members of the party ahead of the NEC meeting, where critical decisions regarding the leadership of the party and other thorny issues that have threatened the unity of the party will be discussed. Well, following that particular situation in the nation's capital, Abuja, but let's turn our attention to another incident that played out yesterday. It was a full day of intrigues in Abuja as the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, tried to arrest the immediate past governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, in order to arraign him over corruption charges. Well, the attempt to arrest the ex-governor led to the laying of siege to his residence located in Wuse Zone 4. But in spite of the heavy presence of the EFCC operatives, Mr. Bello's successor in office, that's Governor Usman Ododo, is reported to have whisked him away. That's according to the EFCC. Meanwhile, two conflicting court rulings emerged in respect to the attempt to arrest a former governor by the EFCC. One of the rulings, which came from a Kogi State High Court sitting in Lokoja, restrained the EFCC from arresting, detaining or prosecuting Mr. Bello, while the EFCC obtained permission from the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja to arrest the ex-Kogi State Governor in preparation of his arraignment, or ahead of his arraignment, which is expected today.
It's clear already that the whole thing is politically motivated, as it is now. You can see it. Every normal human being can interpret what is happening now. The former governor just paid a visit to Mr. President just a day before yesterday, and today this attack came. It's clear. You can read it. You can read within the line.
I am not sure those guys are from EFCC because there is a subsisting court order. I am sure they have regard for rule of law, and I don't think they are above the law. So I have my doubt. I have my reservation. Maybe they are not from EFCC.
Let's give you a quick explainer on how we got here. The EFCC had in March indicted Mr. Bello in an alleged diversion of about, almost 100 billion naira, I should say, an offense said to have been committed months before he assumed office as governor in September 2015. Well, the anti-graft agency had joined him in the amended suit alongside the chief of staff of Kogi State, Ali Bello, and one Daudu Suleiman, who was rearraigned by the anti-graft agency before Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court, Abuja. So it's going to be a big day, definitely. But that's not all. The Coalition for Democracy and Justice, that's a group, is asking the EFCC to desist from what they describe as the illegal attempt to effect the arrest of Mr. Yahaya Bello, despite a court order restraining the commission from doing so. Addressing the news conference in Abuja, the convener of the group says the action of the anti-graft agency is capable of threatening democracy and the rule of law.
Now it is important that we advise the EFCC not to make itself susceptible to any action that might be deemed as violating the sanctity of the judiciary. They must ignore the antics of all those who are urging them to commit contempt of court through disregarding an outstanding court order against the arrest of the former governor Yahaya Bello or any of his aides pending determination of the case in court in that regard, as instituted by the lawyers of the former governor. The rule of law is lifeblood of democracy. Therefore, we urge the EFCC to always toe the path of legality in carrying out its mandate. The Commission must deliberately avoid the temptation of falling under the pressure of disgruntled political elements by breaking the law in their actions to uphold the law. All of those concerned must follow the due process of law by abiding with subsisting court orders. We do sincerely hope that the EFCC, as a law-abiding agency, will see through the poorly veiled, ignoble actions of those undesirable political elements and refuse to act illegally. But our optimism may be short-lived, as in vagrant disregard to that court order, which the Commission has appealed and pending for hearing on May 22nd, April.
On the contrary, however, senior advocate of Nigeria and human rights lawyer Mr. Femi Falana has faulted a court ruling asking the EFCC not to arrest or prosecute any individual, particularly the former governor of Kogi State. Mr. Falana was reacting to a ruling by a state high court in Kogi asking the EFCC not to arrest the former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello. In that statement which he put out, the senior advocate said, by virtue of Section 35(1)(c) of the Constitution, the police, anti-graft agencies, and other prosecutorial bodies cannot be prevented by a court of law from arresting a criminal suspect once there is reasonable suspicion that he or she has committed a criminal offense. Let's talk security now. President Bola Tinubu is sending out a warning to those threatening the nation's sovereignty that they will not go scot-free. Well, the president made that statement during a meeting with the pan-Yoruba socio-political group Afenifere at the presidential villa in Abuja. The president emphasized his government's proactive approach in combating criminal elements, just as the Afenifere leaders also urged President Tinubu to consider restructuring the command structure of federal security agencies for equitable representation.
We have degraded terrorism to a level that they could not threaten the sovereignty of this country any longer. The banditry, kidnapping that they've resorted into will also be defeated. Those that might thought they can threaten the sovereignty of this country will have themselves to blame. They have a price to pay.
Well, some more politics now. The anticipated arraignment of the national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Mr. Abdullahi Ganduje, has been stalled. That's due to the Kano State government's inability to serve criminal charges against him. Mr. Ganduje, alongside his wife Hafsat Ganduje, his son Umar Abdullahi Umar, and 5 others, was slated to face 8 counts, charges including $413,000 bribery allegation and a diversion and misappropriation of funds amounting to 1.38 billion naira. The presiding judge, Justice Naba, adjourned the matter till April the 29th for further proceedings. Meanwhile, Mr. Ganduje has been speaking on his suspension as the national chairman of the party, claiming that those who announce his suspension are sponsored by the ruling New Nigeria People's Party in Kano State. Addressing a delegation of APC members from the state led by the state chairman, alongside executives of Mr. Ganduje's ward in Dawakin Tofa local government ward in Kano State, he described those who announced his suspension as his imposters who will be made to face the wrath of the law. Speaking of the law, Justice Bintan Yako of the Federal High Court in Abuja is set to rule regarding an application to transfer Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of indigenous people of Biafra, from the custody of the Department of State Services, DSS, on May the 20th. Kanu's counsel, Aloy Jimako, is seeking either house arrest or placement in another law enforcement agency's custody for Mr. Kanu. The hearing will continue as Justice Yako reviews arguments on this matter. Let's talk business now. The governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, Mr. Yemi Cardoso, has addressed concerns over the decline in external reserves, maintaining that the decline is not because the Apex Bank is defending the Naira. Mr. Cardoso further clarified that the decrease in foreign exchange reserves were primarily due to debt repayment and other standard financial obligations rather than efforts to defend the Naira. He was speaking at the ongoing spring meetings of the IMF and World Bank. He added that his team at the Apex Bank is determined to nurse a foreign exchange market ruled by the principle of willing buyers, willing sellers.
And I want to try and make this as clear as possible. It is not our intention to defend the Naira. It is not. And much as I have read in the recent few days some opinions with respect to what is happening with our reserves and the central bank defending the Naira, if you think back to what our overall policy and philosophy has been here, you can see it's counterintuitive. Okay, basically what we're encouraging is for the markets to willing buyer, willing seller, price discovery. And ultimately, I perceive a future where central bank will really not need to intervene, okay, except in very, very unusual circumstances.
Well, let's talk about the heavy rains that has been battering Gulf states, causing flash floods that have killed 20 people and disrupted flights at world's second busiest airport. Dubai International Airport says it is facing very challenging conditions. And further north, a man died when his car was caught in flash floods. In Oman, rescuers found the body of a girl in Saham, bringing the death toll in the country to 19 since Sunday. And on to sports news, Arsenal made a bitterly disappointing exit from the Champions League as they were beaten by Bayern Munich in a euphoric atmosphere at the Allianz Arena. Joshua Kimmich's powerful 63rd minute header from Rafael Guerrero's cross was enough to send the Germans through. On the flip side, Real Madrid exerted revenge on Manchester City to reach the Champions League semi-finals 4-3 on penalties after withstanding a barrage at the Etihad.